Hello, ladies. When Facebook finally joins the dots. Good afternoon, beautiful women. So, um, before we begin, I just want to say we're not about in this platform. We're not here to judge. We're not here to fix things on a gross scale. And I want you to also think about what you could be doing to help yourself, right? So, ladies, this week I am starting something new. I'm starting a series called Your Symptoms Are Speaking, because so many women are doing the right things, eating well, trying to be consistent, being responsible, keeping everything together, and still feeling like their body is doing something completely different, doing its own thing. And we're starting with, so what we're going to do is I'm going to start with going through symptoms. One symptom, and I'm going to go through symptoms because, as I say, symptoms are your body's messages. And if we can listen to the symptoms, we can understand what the body's trying to tell us. So we're starting off with one symptom that underlies almost everything I see in midlife women. So I want to ask you, do you feel like you're eating well, but you keep putting more and more weight on around the middle? Do you feel you're hungry again not long after you've eaten? Do you crash in the afternoon? Are your cravings stronger than they used to be? You awake at 2 to 4 a.m., wired, restless, maybe even hungry. What about your brain feels foggier than it used to? And have you thought, what is going on in my body? These signs are not random. And for a lot of women, this is not just about hormones in the vague way it gets talked about. Today, I'm talking about one of the most common and most misunderstood drivers beneath all of this: insulin resistance. Now, I want to be really clear. I'm not talking about diabetes here, right? It's not a diabetes conversation. This is a midlife conversation. So this pattern, there's a pattern that's very, very common. One of the key statistics is that up to 80% of women develop some degree of insulin resistance during perimenopause and menopause, even if they're not overweight. So if this is you, you are not the exception. You're actually in that pattern hold. And after menopause, the incidence of diabetes increases, driven by increased insulin resistance, by reduced glucose effectiveness, and changes in insulin secretion. So this matters. This matters because women are still trying to solve a midlife biology shift that's natural with willpower. And that is where a lot of shame and that negative internal dialogue starts. So if this is you, as I said, you're not the exception, you're in the pattern, and this is what or where a lot of ladies are misled. Most women are told one of three things: it's just your age, your metabolism is slowing down, eat less, move more. So naturally, what do women do? They tighten, they restrict, they skip meals, they push harder, they become more controlling with food, they blame themselves. But that explanation is actually incomplete. And for many, many women, it's actually making things worse. And that is where things start to break down, because the issue is not simply that your body is slowing down. The issue is that your body is becoming less metabolically flexible. So metabolic flexibility is key. And it's also a more stress sensitive body in midlife. So that's a very different conversation to a diabetes conversation per se. So let's make this simple. There's a lot of different ways of explaining insulin resistance, but insulin is the hormone that helps move glucose, sugar from your food, out of the bloodstream and into your cells, where it can be used for energy. So we eat, glucose goes up, insulin comes in to transport that glucose to the cells for energy, okay? It is the one, insulin is the one that knocks on the cell going, hi, I've got some fuel here for you. So insulin resistance means that those cells stop responding. They don't answer the door. So they stop responding as well as they used to insulin. So if you go on a continuous glucose spike, thus insulin production increases to deliver to the cells, and the cells are full, right? They start to ignore that knocking. So your body has to produce more and more insulin to get the same job done, because the insulin's like, oh, what am I going to do now, right? And it runs around, runs out of fuel, and then we make more because we've got another spike in blood sugar, so we have another spike in insulin, and then the insulin will just go, well, I've got this energy, I'm going to store it. So over time, what that looks like is more insulin circulating, more fat storage, especially around the middle, more hunger, more energy crashes, more cravings, more inflammation. And this can be happening long before anything shows up in your blood test, long before your fasting glucose or your HbA1 look obviously abnormal. And that's why so many women are told blood tests are fine, your labs are normal, while their body is clearly telling them something else. So let's talk about what becomes, or why this becomes more visible after 40. One thing, your hormones are shifting. Estrogen shifts. Estrogen normally supports your insulin sensitivity and helps glucose move into things like your skeletal muscle for that energy. When estrogen declines or fluctuates, insulin resistance rises. So when it drops, when that estrogen is dropping, remember it does a roller coaster, your body becomes less efficient at handling blood sugar. So many tangents I could go on here, but I'm trying to stick to the main points rather than leading you down all the different rabbit holes we can go down when it comes to insulin and resistance and sensitivity and choices of food. But that's what I'm saying. Stay to the point, Sally. Progesterone, right? Progesterone drops, and progesterone helps stabilize the stress response. Progesterone is part of our calming hormones. So as it declines or leaves the building, right, as it falls, women often become less resilient to stress and less resilient to those blood sugar swings. So that's hormones. That's estrogen, progesterone. Then there's sleep. Sleep gets disrupted. Hot flushes, early waking, lighter sleep. All of that impacts your next day glucose handling and insulin sensitivity. Then there's muscle mass decreasing. Right? We lose muscle as we age, and muscle is where glucose gets used. So less muscle equals less ability to process energy. Less muscle is less ability to handle carbs efficiently. Muscle is your biggest glucose sink. It's not your only, but it's your biggest. Less muscle, less room for glucose to go, and less insulin sensitivity. And then one of our favorites, ladies, stress. Stress increases, so cortisol rises. Midlife often comes with more responsibility, more emotional load, less recovery. And chronic stress increases cortisol, which raises your blood sugar and worsens insulin receptor sensitivity. It also promotes visceral fat storage. That's that fat around your vital organs. So cortisol rises and cortisol raises blood sugar. So in midlife, a perfect storm is created. There's hormonal shifts, there's losing muscle, lean muscle mass, there's more stress, there's poorer sleep, more blood sugar instability. And then women think the answer is push harder, work more. Okay, and I'm just getting the group up just to see if there's any questions as I'm going through this. No, not yet. All right, so no wonder it feels awful because you're already like a pressure cooker and then you're putting more pressure in. Right? But the body adapts. Your body goes, I need to store energy more efficiently. And so this is the disappointing part. Sorry, ladies. How does that show up? That shows up as belly fat, as cravings, as energy crashes. So your body is broken. It is not broken. It has become more efficient at storing energy. So this is where I want to join all those dots together, because it's not just what's happening, it's what keeps happening. The occasional chocolate, the occasional ice cream, the occasional treat, that's not going to cause insulin resistance. But it's the keep happening, okay? It's the repeat. So when you eat, as I say, blood sugar rises, insulin rises to cope with it, blood sugar drops. You feel hungry, you crave quick energy, you eat again. That's one loop, and the loop continues. And then add stress, and it becomes stress. Cortisol rises, blood sugar rises, insulin rises, more storage, more fatigue, more cravings, more stress, and repeat. This is a feedback loop. It's not a discipline problem, not a willpower problem. Your body isn't broken. It's responding to a pattern. And the good bit, patterns can change. So what you ladies experience, right? What you notice in real life. Now that, let's name the things you commonly see, or I commonly hear from you all as well. This is what that loop feels like. Stubborn belly fat or weight around your waist. Sugar and carb cravings, especially afternoon and evening. Post-meal crashes. Hunger not long after a meal. Hangry episodes. Brain fog. Increased hunger even after eating. Poor sleep or waking up to that 3 a.m. Fatigue, especially those 3 p.m. crashes. Elevated triglycerides or cholesterol. Skin tags. Yep, skin tags. Brown patches, right, of your skin, right, especially your neck and your underarms. And what can also be indicative is if you've got a history of PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or gestational diabetes. And one of the most important points, you can be lean right? And still be insulin resistant. So this is not just a weight conversation or a diabetes conversation, it's a system conversation. So let me give you a real life example. A woman came to me, mid-40s, and said, I don't understand. I'm eating cleaner than ever, but I feel worse. She had constant hunger. She had that classic 3 p.m. crash every day, increasing belly weight and broken sleep and foggy concentration. Her GP did some bloods and said things were normal. But when we looked closer, what was obvious was the pattern: unstable blood sugar, elevated insulin effort, high stress load, and a body stuck in compensation. She was in that loop. So we didn't restrict more. We worked on meal rhythm, more protein, reduced those blood sugar spikes and troughs, the swings, less reactive eating. We supported her nervous system and we improved her recovery. Within weeks, the hunger settled, energy steadied, cravings dropped, weight stopped climbing. Not because she got more disciplined, but because we calmed that loop that was just spinning. So instead of saying, my metabolism is slow, ladies, a more accurate statement might be, my body is struggling to regulate blood sugar efficiently. This is such a better way of talking about it. That's a better conversation to be having and thinking about, because now we can actually do something with it. Right? So it's really important to pick up these things because everything has stages, right? So what we need to do is address it when it's insulin resistance, because if we don't, it progresses. It goes to that next level. It's linked to metabolic syndrome, to type 2 diabetes, to cardiovascular risk, to inflammation, to worsening hormone symptoms. But as I say, the good news, it is reversible. But first, we need to get a diagnosis. We can't assume all those symptoms are just menopause, just like we can't assume all those symptoms are just insulin resistance. So, diagnosis. Standard fasting glucose and HbA1 often stay normal until it progresses. Early insulin resistance is often missed unless you look at insulin-focused testing. So useful markers are things like fasting insulin, not just fasting glucose. HbA1c, absolutely. HOMA-IR, triglycerides, triglyceride HDL ratio, and your HS-CRP, so highly sensitive HS-CRP is an inflammatory marker, and waist circumference or waist to height ratio, not just your BMI. So if a woman says, my doctor says I'm fine, but I know I'm not fine, sometimes that is because the right markers haven't been checked yet. So this isn't me diagnosing anyone here today, right? This is me helping you understand the conversation and deeper look if you suspect this is what's happening for you. And yes, I do have a metabolic testing regime for my clients with a functional testing lab. It's called the BioSync Metabolic Panel, right, which is available to anybody as well. But try and get it for your GP first. So they don't call it that. They will have them listed as individual tests. Right. And why, as I say, why it matters now, why it matters is for two reasons. I think I put 3 fingers up in. Right. First, the symptoms. Insulin resistance can worsen a huge number of midlife symptoms. Yes, making things worse. Belly weight gain, hot flushes, brain fog, mood swings, sleep disruption, inflammation, higher androgens, your male hormones, right? Acne, hirsutism in some women, so that's the hair where we don't want it. Fatty liver disease, lipid disruptions. All of those are worsened if you've got insulin resistance. The second thing is that long-term risk. As I said, it progresses untreated. Untreated, we're associated with a higher risk of pre-diabetes, then type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, fatty liver disease, cognitive decline, and some cancers. And without intervention, it does tend to progress, especially if you have excess visceral fat. Remember what I said? That's that fat around your vital organs. If you've got a family history of diabetes, if you've got a history of PCOS, if you've had gestational diabetes history, but reversal is possible, ladies. That's the important part. This is serious, but it's also changeable. Now, treatment. First diagnosis, then treatment. Putting it into context, because women are hearing a lot right now. I've been seeing way too many things being posted on social media, which are just scaremongering, right? So lifestyle remains foundational, irregardless of whatever your doctor wants to prescribe you, right? Lifestyle is foundational. It's the cornerstone. That means your food quality, your macros, your protein, your fiber, your strength training, your sleep, your stress regulation, your meal rhythm. I do get asked, what about HRT or MHT as it's now called? Hormone therapy can help, right? But it is great for some people, but it is not the whole picture if the metabolic foundation is unstable. Metformin. Metformin is widely used for type 2 diabetes when it's progressed and often used off-label, right, for pre-diabetes or PCOS-related insulin resistance. It improves your insulin sensitivity and reduces the hepatic glucose production, so how much your liver provides. Now, I'm opening a Pandora's box. I know I put it in, took it out, put it in, took it out. GLPs, so your peptides, right, your injectable weight loss drugs. These are highly relevant for women with obesity, with prediabetes, for a significant metabolic dysfunction because they improve glucose control and can reduce visceral fat. But they also do not replace lifestyle foundations. And they come with quite a substantial cost, side effects, and there can be access issues to continue it. This is not about being pro or anti-medication. It's about understanding what layer of the problem each tool addresses. So they may be able to help some ladies with a part. So some good points to clarify some misinformation that I have been seeing, which is what's raised me to decide to do this series, because of my background as a medical scientist and my training as a naturopath and nutritionist. And then I see these posts and I'm like, I cringe because I'm like, oh, people believe that. Oh my goodness, that's a bit scary. Okay. Insulin resistance often predates menopause. It's not that menopause causes insulin resistance, right? Insulin resistance predates it. It's revealed by it. It's not created out of nowhere. My analogy is of, life creates cracks and then our hormonal shifts blow them open. It reveals what's been happening underneath. Metabolic health helps explain why women experience menopause so different as well. Right? So your metabolic flexibility will have an impact on your menopausal symptoms. As I say, insulin resistance amplifies, breaks them open. And standard tests can miss early dysfunction. And improving insulin sensitivity can dramatically improve how you feel. So let me make this practical. this is how I want you to start decoding your symptoms. If you have stubborn belly weight, cravings, 3 a.m. waking, think, estrogen drop, cortisol rise, muscle insulin resistance, visceral fat storage, your metabolism broken, your system is less insulin sensitive. If you have brain fog and an afternoon crash, think blood sugar swings and inflammation affecting brain energy. This is not just about aging, this is dysregulation. If your thing is skin tags and dark patches, think chronically elevated insulin may be involved. So your body is signaling you need to look closer. So ladies, the woman who thrives in midlife does not keep fighting her body. She learns to read it. She doesn't just push harder. She stabilizes her system first. That is the shift. So maybe it's not lack of willpower. Maybe it's not your metabolism is broken. Maybe it's your blood sugar. And maybe your body is adapting to hormonal shifts, stress, less muscle, unstable blood sugar. Maybe your body isn't resisting you, it's responding to a pattern. And maybe the real question is not what's wrong with me, but what pattern is my body responding to? And then we can change the pattern, right? So it's a completely different relationship with yourself. And this is exactly why I'm doing this new series. Monday, I'm going to be doing about understanding what's going on. And Friday, instead of it being a general Q&A, I'm changing it to be about recognizing those that understanding in your own body. So on Friday, I'm going to have a real talk about what this actually looks like in your day-to-day life. Why, what is it for you? Is it the 3 p.m. crash, the hunger after meals, the belly that won't shift, the food noise, constant talking, the feeling that your body has changed the rules without telling you? And on Wednesday, so in the middle of the week, I'm going to be posting a specific symptom thread, right? If you're eating well and still gaining weight around the middle, this is probably why. So if you're already recognizing yourself in what I've spoken about today, there is a way to stabilize it. You can always, reach out to me. We can look at whether the blood panel would be advantageous for you. We can look at the 28-day metabolic reset if it's right for you. So let me know if you need links to any of those and to check it out. So just remember, ladies, your symptoms are not random. They are messages. And this week, we're beginning to learn how to read them. I'll see you all on Friday. Bye for now.